Hello friends, Mr. E here, and today I'll be talking about Curios and helping you to understand why there is a ideal setup for Curios that you should be doing every single time. I am seeing a ton of people out there who are going buck wild, who are just not at all following the tenets of good Curios on their classes. I think a lot of players, even players that I know watch my content, that I know use my builds, that I know are playing Havoc 40, are still not using the correct Curios, and I'm here to correct that today. So fortunately, there is a really simple answer. There is a solved Curio meta. Unfortunately, there is a solved Curio meta. These things are super boring. So in the first part, I'll talk about how to find and make the perfect Curio and why it is perfect. And then in the second part, I'll be talking about what should Curios actually be in this game. If Fast Shark was going to do something with them, what could they be doing instead? Because clearly at some point they had plans of making them something else. So first of all, remember to subscribe and get me to Warhammer 40k subs. But beyond that, first of all, what stats can you get on Curios? Here they are up here. The maximum stats you can get are 1 wound, 3 stamina, 17 toughness, or 21% max health. The best one here is by far the toughness. We exist in a toughness meta right now. Almost every class, and only maybe like one build in the game really uses health at all. Wounds is only used again by one build in the game. Both these are on Zealot, coincidentally enough. And then max stamina is just kind of maybe like a flavor pick on like Hive Scum or something, because Hive Scum get a little bit of extra juice out of stamina. But the one I really want to focus in on today, because I think it's going to be applicable to 98% of builds and players, is toughness. This is the one you want to be on the lookout for. Now, how do you get the elusive 17% toughness? Well, that's called slamming your face into a brick wall until you find it, because there's only 3 ways to get Curios. You can complete games, which is the chump's way of getting Curios. You'll never get the 17% toughness from doing that. You could get it from the shop, the one that sells the weapons for regular money. That guy has 2 on rotation every hour. So you can check in at the end of the hour, say at like 2:55, and then wait a couple minutes until 3 o'clock, and it'll roll over, and you'll get to check twice in 5 minutes time. And then you don't have to check again until 4:55. So every 2 hours you can check it. This is how we used to do it back in the day when all of the weapons in the world were found like this, and it was absolute hog water to try and find any good weapons. So that's the way you can do it if you are poor and you're trying to save resources by doing it that way, and you got a lot of time on your hands. Or if you are rich and you've been playing the game for a long time and you need to go roll Curios, you can do it with Melk, the guy who gives you the weekly quests. You can brute force roll for defensive Curios, and since there's literally almost no other use for those Melk dollar dues, whatever they're called, this is probably the best thing to do here, is just go ahead and spam roll them and then check your inventory and see if you got anything. Now, the 17% toughness, it is very rare, so it'll take you a while to get it, but you can settle for 16s. 16s are just fine as well. It's not going to matter a whole heck of a lot, a 1 or 2% toughness difference. What really does matter past this is the perks down here. So when I'm talking about the blessings up here, the reason you have to roll that stuff is because this stuff cannot be changed. You cannot craft it. So you have to find these or you have to buy them outright. So that stuff is already set in stone. But you can change anything down here. All these perks are malleable. You can craft it up to orange and you can change them any way, which way you want. And fortunately for you, Mr. E has brought you today the solution. There is a correct choice on 2 of these that you should be choosing on every single Curio every single time. Okay, the first one is combat ability regeneration. This should be on every single one of your Curios on every single class, period. Combat abilities in this game are OP, like just downright OP. There's no reason to not be stacking combat ability regeneration. Having an ultimate versus not having an ultimate is the difference between winning and losing in a lot of situations. And having a 3-second gap that is now erased by having these Curios is a big deal when you're concerning ultimate abilities like Bubble, like a Chorus, like a Shout. Like these abilities, the more you can spam them, the more you win. They are win more buttons, and they are buttons that allow you to stop a potential enemy cascade that might roll you over. So having a 12% cooldown reduction doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it ends up being a lot, especially if you have a long base cooldown like Chorus or something does. 12% there is cutting, more than 6 seconds off of the time, which is pretty dang massive. Definitely respectable amount of time. And this is even more valuable these days because they are clearly steering us away from having lots and lots of cooldown reduction in our talent trees. So this is going to get even more and more value and make certain you're ulting more often. So take this. It is the sole offensive node on this entire tree. It is the sole thing that it actually gives you more power and it makes you do more damage and keeps the team safe. It is just the best one overall. The second best one, and the other one you should absolutely have, is Revive Speed for allies. I cannot say this enough, and players will fight me tooth and nail on this, and it makes me really mad because you can tell when players don't have it, because their revives take forever. A revive takes 3 seconds. Rescuing an ally from a trapper net takes 1 second. Rescuing an ally from being hogtied or off of a ledge takes 3 seconds, right? So that doesn't seem like a lot of time until you remember that there are enemies on the map, and until you remember that the reason the ally is downed or dying where they're dying is probably because they were in a really bad spot and they got killed there in the first place. So there's something that killed them, and you're going to have to stand there right next to them and be more or less defenseless while you pick them up for those 3 seconds. Good luck. Reducing that by 36% is hugely impactful. And this recently got a buff. As you can see in the old traits down here, it was 10%. Now it's 12%. And it applies to all forms of rescuing allies, not only reviving allies, but also getting hog-tied allies up, getting allies off ledges, getting nets off of allies. As I said, that is all reduced by 36%. And that can stack with other effects additively. So Zealots become the absolute rescue gods. They have a 25% base cooldown or base reduction from the talent Providence that gives them revive speed. That means you get 61% revive speed, picking allies up in the blink of an eye, less than a second and a half to get an ally on their feet, which is a massive, massive utility to the team. The way you should see it is this. The way you lose games, the way you win and lose games is by having every member of your team. When everybody dies, you'll lose the round, right? So having players who are down that you cannot save, that lose out on the potential to be standing and fighting, is a massive, massive blow to your chances to win the game. That is the number one way that you can make your chances of winning the game plummet precipitously, is losing a player, especially if you play on Havoc, where the AI director does not give a fuck whether or not you have 1 or 4 players alive. Every player you lose is a massive, massive tipping of the scales against you. So keeping your players alive, getting the rescues when they're available, is of the absolute paramount importance. Nothing else on this list comes even close. No 5% toughness, no 20% DR to gunners. None of that stuff is going to save a game that would otherwise be in the gutter, right? 20% damage resistance to bombers or whatever is not going to turn around a losing game. Having an ally that otherwise would have died on the ground, but you couldn't do it fast enough, will. And if you can complete a game and you never needed to revive an ally, congratulations. Guess what? You didn't need to have that perk anyway. So you've still done it. You've won the game. This is insulation. This is insurance against the one in, well, it happens a lot in higher difficulties, but against the occasional situation where you have an ally in a really bad position and you need to get them up 100%. They have their ult ready to go. If you could just get them up, and it makes all the difference in that moment. So please, please, please take this. If you don't believe me, start taking it. You'll see the difference. Okay, from there's a lot of other stuff here, and this is where I think players get confused, but let's go ahead and make it really simple. All this stuff is garbage. Don't take anything with the red line over it. All of it's just straight garbage. It has too few use cases, or it is literally just like fluff for generating more resources. So get that the heck out of here. Everything with a yellow line on it, including this stuff up here, is situational. 2.5% health, that's situationally used on health stacking Zealot and RBDs a couple to get the True Grit, extra True Grit stacks. DR to bombers can work if you are going for DR on your Curios as your third option. And like on Ogren or something. Block efficiency on Ogrens, RBDs, and Zealot, or not Zealot, and Psychers, who can block tank basically effectively. And then corruption resistance is okay, especially on a health stacking Zealot, and sprint efficiency if you're like a speedrunner or something. But everything in the red line is just a straight flat no. You'll note this leaves us with a couple more options, 3 more options notably. Gunner DR, stamina regeneration, and toughness. How do you make the decision between which of these to choose as your last blessing? Because these two are mandatory. Man, take these, okay? These are mandatory. You will take this one and this one every single time on every single curio. Three stacks. Okay? Yes, sir. Okay. Everything else is all done for you. So you've probably got this curio right here with these two. How do you choose which of these three is left to take? The way I think about it is this. If I am using a class that is highly stamina dependent, such as a Hive Scum, who gets a lot of value out of having my stamina high, then stamina regeneration is really, really good. So Hive Scums and Zealots use this pretty well, especially like Dagger Zealots, because these classes are either very, very evasive towards taking damage and therefore are not going to take very much damage, or they don't really need that extra toughness. They would rather have some extra ability to sprint or push stab or whatever it might be. I think the best user of this is going to be the Hive Scum, because the Hive Scum, especially even with the +3 max stamina, he's the best user of this sort of curio as well, because he gets extra juice out of having more stamina, right? He gets up to 2% attack speed for every stamina that he currently has. So having a fuller stamina bar means more attack speed. So it's just a straight offensive upgrade for him to have these two things. And this also keeps his stamina nice and high because he can actually regenerate stamina while sliding. But for non-Hive Scum, probably not necessary at this moment. Maybe Arbites or something, but probably not all that necessary. The other options here, Gunner damage resistance. I recommend this on Ogryns and Arbites because these are the two classes that have the frontline role. They're going to be up there. They're going to be punching and hitting on the frontline gunners, and then the backline gunners are going to be hitting them with bullets, and those bullets hurt. Reapers and machine gunners are the type of gunners that this affects, and those two types of enemies are some of the only enemies that have enough damage to consistently hurt Arbites and Ogryns when they are in the fight on the melee front lines. They have enough DPS, and they can sometimes get a beat on you. Every once in a while, you got a gunner who's absolutely cracked, and he will laser in on you, and he will destroy you. This can prevent that from happening. You can just go toe-to-toe with them, no problem. So that is what I'd recommend there. The other thing I should note about damage resistance, it is multiplicative in terms of resistance. So your first curio you'll take will give you a 20% resistance to gunners. The second one you'll take of that same type will give you a 37% total because it multiplies down. And then the third one you take will land you at 49% resistance. So this is a big fall off, right? You went from getting a 20% to only 9% effective on that last one there. So I recommend actually not taking 3 damage resistance to gunners. You get something more impactful by maybe subbing in a toughness or another stamina regeneration, or you go for that last one with the bombers, because this does affect both the flame and the pox gas ticks as well. So you can stand in both a little bit more. And then the third one that you could potentially take is toughness. This is just the all-rounder. I take this on the Psyker is good for this because the Psyker's not using stamina, they're not taking damage from gunners, and they can just have extra toughness, and then they just have their revive speed and combat ability regeneration. There you go. That's just your catch-all for everything else. So pretty much all general classes like Veteran, very good with this as well. Okay, so there you go. That's the setup here, guys. Take your 17% toughness curios. Most of your curios, if not all of them, should be this, unless you're doing some meme build. Combat ability regeneration and revive speed are mandatory, and then one of these other 3, preferably in that last slot. Now, let's talk about what these could be, because I have problems with this, obviously. The fact that this is so simply solved, the fact that there is just a meta that's literally got 5 options for you, I don't like being that guy who says there's only these options, but the rest of them are so garbage. Look at how many are just crossed out with red lines because they're just junk and totally garbage. And even these 2 up here should be crossed out with red lines because this is only used on 1 build each. These are completely irrelevant. They could remove all this red stuff and add in so many other good things. And notably, they clearly had ideas for doing this when the game came out, because if you look in Melk's shop, it actually has it listed as a random defensive curio is what you're rolling for. And there's slots there as if they were thinking they were going to have offensive curios or utility curios. How cool would it be if the blessings that you could have or the perks you could have affected your ammo capacity, or affected the ability to generate peril, or affected your the amount of, like, what if there was a blessing that was +1 blitz or something like that? You carry 1 extra grenade. Those sort of things are, I think, the avenues Fat Shark should be thinking along when they are trying to come up with stuff. If players are willing to trade 17% toughness for something, what could we give them instead? Because right now, I don't think anything else here even stands a chance. We should offer them something that could give them more offense, that can help to continually differentiate builds, because right now it is so monotonous. These Curios, and the reason I think a lot of players ignore Curios just to start with, is because they add nothing in terms of flavor to builds. 99% of what builds are currently is down to your weapons and your talent tree and your blessings and your weapons, and that's it. And the Curios are just kind of like there to provide passive stats that everyone takes the same stuff. So there's so much cool differentiating ideas they could do here. I don't want to belabor it all day, but I really just wanted to put that in there as a little bit of a soapbox at the end. Comment down below, honestly, if you can think of some ideas that they could use for Curios. I kind of might want to do a separate video talking about like potential cool Curio ideas. But if you've got any ideas what would be a cool Curio stat, comment that down below. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped. Go get that revive speed in your Curios, guys. I'll see you out there. Bye-bye.